Hello students, today we are going to discuss about anatomy of pleura is a serous membrane which contains single layer of mesothelium which are formed by the flattened cells and it is supported by the fibrous tissue. Before talking about the pleura, we will just discuss what all is there in the thoracic cavity. Within the thoracic cavity, towards the middle of the thoracic cavity, we have mediastinum, and on either side of the mediastinum, there are two pleural sacs. Formation of pleura is best understood by an example of a fluid-filled balloon which is invaginated from one side. This makes the balloon thinned out. Similarly, the lung also invaginates the pleural sac, which is like a filled up balloon, and slowly when the lung grows the pleural sac thins out to form two membranes, and in between the two membranes a small space is left. The pleura, now because of that thinning out and invagination by the lung, it has two layers. Outer layer which lines the thoracic wall is called as parietal pleura, and an inner layer which lines the lungs and is adherent to the lung very closely is called as visceral pleura. In between the two pleura, there is a space which is called as pleural cavity. This pleural cavity is filled up with the fluid called pleural fluid. It is a thin layer of fluid which helps in lubricating the opposing surfaces of parietal and visceral pleura for friction-free movements. Visceral pleura covers the lungs and the fissures of the lungs. This is clear in this picture how the fissure is being covered by the visceral pleura, and this visceral pleura is adherent to the lung tissue and it is adherent till the root of the lung. It is continuous with the parietal pleura at the hilum of the lung and the pulmonary ligament. Parietal pleura lines the outer wall of the thoracic cavity and it is named according to the parts of the wall with which the parietal pleura is associated. And it's so in this way it has four parts: costal, diaphragmatic, mediastinal, and the cervical pleura. Costal pleura, it covers the inner surface of the thoracic wall, that is ribs and intercostal spaces, and it is also covering the inner surface on the lateral aspect of the sternum. It is loosely attached to the thoracic uh, wall by the endothoracic fascia. The endothoracic fascia is the deep fascia of the thorax and it lies inner to the innermost layer of the intercostal muscles and the inner interior of the ribs and outer to the parietal pleura. The diaphragmatic pleura is it covers the superior surface of the dome of the diaphragm and it is very closely opposed to the diaphragm, while the mediastinal pleura covers the structures within the mediastinum from the lateral aspect. It is continuous with the visceral pleura at the hilum of the lung. Cervical pleura, which is also called as cupola, is responsible for covering the apex of the lung. It is projecting into the neck approximately 5 centimeter above the first rib or 2.5 centimeters above the clavicle bone, especially the middle third of the clavicle bone. This diagram is able to explain the presence of cervical pleura. Basically, why we have cervical pleura is because of the difference in the height of anterior end and the posterior end of the rib, which lies at about difference of 5 centimeter, and that is why the pleura which is projecting to the posterior end is at a higher level as compared to the anterior end. And if you view it from the anterior aspect of the chest wall, it appears to be present in the root of the neck. So this is all because of the tilt in the first rib. The cervical pleura is covered by a firm membrane, which is basically the endothoracic fascia, and here it is called as suprapleural membrane or Simpson's fascia. It is like a tent which covers the cervical fascia and extends from the transverse process of seventh cervical vertebra to the inner border of the first rib. Cervical pleura is related anteriorly to the subclavian artery and scalenus anterior muscle, while on the posterior aspect it is related to the neck of the first rib and the structures related to it, and that is ventral ramus of the first thoracic nerve, superior intercostal artery, and stellate ganglion or first thoracic sympathetic ganglion. While on the lateral aspect, just behind the scalenus anterior muscle, it is related to the scalenus medius muscle, and medially it is related to the great vessels of the neck, that is carotids and the subclavians. Pulmonary ligament has been mentioned earlier also in this lecture. So pulmonary ligament is basically just like a hanging portion of the cuff of a sleeve around the wrist, and it is basically two layers of visceral pleura which hangs down from the hilum, and at this point the visceral pleura also continues on to the parietal pleura, and this loose tissue contains loose areolar tissue plus certain lymphatics. This pulmonary ligament provides a dead space for the expansion of structures which lie within the hilum, and these are like for the expansion of pulmonary veins after the increase in the venous return following certain exercises, or it also gives space for the descent of the root of the lung during the descent of the diaphragm in deep or forceful inspirations. There are two folds of the parietal pleura. They act as reserve spaces for the lungs to expand. These folds are seen in the areas where there is reflection of parietal pleura from one region to the other. For example, from costal pleura to the diaphragmatic pleura. So, such spaces act as reserve spaces which will be occupied only during the deep or forceful inspirations. There are various clinical aspects of these recesses. They provide space not only for the lungs to inspire, but they also provide space for the collection of fluid in certain diseases, and they are also the regions for the aspiration or the drainage of these fluids when they are collected here. They, the recesses are of two types. One is costodiaphragmatic recess and another is costomediastinal recess. Costodiaphragmatic recess is formed when the costal pleura reflects onto the superior surface of diaphragm to form diaphragmatic pleura. This recess is shallow in deep inspiration and deep in expiration, approximately 5 centimeter in height, and it is C-shaped or sickle shaped in it extends from 8th to 10th rib along the mid axillary line, and this is the first part of the pleural cavity to be filled whenever there is accumulation of fluid in the pleural cavity. While costomediastinal recess is located when the costal pleura reflects onto the mediastinal surface to form mediastinal pleura. They are more conspicuous in the left lung because of the presence of left chambers of the heart. Pleural reflections are the change in the direction of the parietal pleura to form other region of the pleura. There are three type of such reflections of the pleura in the pleural cavity. Anterior reflections of the pleura are just behind the sternum, and they occur when the costal pleura turns medially to form mediastinal pleura. This is abrupt and a sharp reflection. The posterior reflection is the posterior counterpart of the anterior line or sternal line, and it occurs when the costal pleura turns over the vertebra medially to form mediastinal pleura from the posterior aspect. This is a gradual turn and this reflection is rounded. The inferior reflection is another sharp reflection. It is formed when the costal pleura turns onto the superior surface of the diaphragm to form diaphragmatic pleura inferiorly. This is also called as costal line. In surface marking of pleura, cervical pleura is represented as an arch over the medial one-third of the clavicle with points over the sternoclavicular joint. Another point which lies right just 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter above the middle of the medial one-third of the clavicle in the neck, and third point is the lateralmost point of medial one-third of the clavicle. All three points are joined in an arch to represent the cervical pleura. The anterior margin is formed by a point taken on the sternoclavicular joint, another point taken in the middle of the sternal angle, and third point is taken at the xiphisternal joint. This, if you draw a line joining all 3 points, this will give anterior margin of the right pleura. While for the left side, we take similar points, one at the sternoclavicular joint, another at the sternal angle, but third point here is taken at the fourth costal cartilage, and fourth point is taken at sixth costal cartilage. The points at first 3 points join together to form a straight line, while point at fourth costal cartilage and at sixth costal cartilage are joined by forming an arch which represents the cardiac notch area. Then the inferior margin is formed by a lateral reflection, and this is represented by the last point on the anterior margin, that is at the level of sixth costal cartilage or xiphisternal joint. Then it reflects from here laterally in such a manner that it cuts the eighth rib in mid clavicular line and 10th rib in mid axillary line. While on the posterior aspect, it cuts the 12th rib in paravertebral line, which lies about 2 centimeter lateral to the spinous processes of the vertebra. So with this, we can draw the complete reflections of the pleura. Now the pleura is supplied by various blood vessels, and visceral pleura, because it is adherent to the lungs, so the arterial supply comes from that of the lungs, and that is supplied mainly by the bronchial arteries, while the venous drainage goes into the pulmonary veins. Parietal pleura is mainly supplied by the intercostal arteries, especially cervical pleura, costal pleura, and the outer aspect of the diaphragmatic pleura get their blood supply from the intercostal vessels, while inner aspect of the diaphragmatic pleura is supplied by pericardiophrenac arteries, which are the branches of internal thoracic artery. And the medial mediastinal pleura is totally supplied by pericardial arteries. Nerve supply of the visceral pleura comes from within the lung, and it is autonomic in nature, comes through the pulmonary plexus, which supplies sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves to the visceral pleura, and parasympathetic nerve supply comes through the vagus nerve. While parietal pleura, it is a pain sensitive pleura and is supplied by the somatic nerves, and cervical and the costal part of the parietal pleura is totally supplied by the intercostal nerves beginning from first thoracic to the 11th thoracic nerve, while the diaphragmatic pleura is supplied by on the outer aspect by the intercostal nerves, while on the medial aspect by the pericardiophrenac nerve, which is a branch of phrenic nerve itself, and mediastinal pleura is totally supplied by the pericardiophrenac branch of the phrenic nerve. Lymphatic drainage from the visceral pleura goes through the pulmonary plexus located in the interlobar or peribronchial spaces to reach the bronchopulmonary lymph nodes, uh, which are near the hilum. And while the parietal pleura drains into various group of lymph nodes, that is intercostal lymph nodes, then on the medial side it will drain into the internal thoracic lymph nodes, and posterior mediastinal lymph nodes posteriorly, while inferiorly into diaphragmatic lymph nodes. Inflammations of parietal pleura is termed as pleuritis, and parietal pleura inflammation is a very painful condition. Pleuritis is commonly seen due to infections, but in our country, tuberculosis is one of the major causes for the pleuritis, and it can be diagnosed on auscultation by hearing the sounds called pleural rub, which appears as a creaking sound when two leather surfaces are rubbed against each other. Pleural effusion is accumulation of fluid in the pleural cavity, but when it is blood within the pleural cavity, it is termed as hemothorax. And if it is pus in the pleural cavity, it is called as empyema. Sometimes there can be air inside the pleural cavity, and accumulation of air is called as pneumothorax. Pneumothorax can occur from within, that is, when there is communication of the pleural cavity with the bronchial tree or the lung alveoli, or it can occur from outside due to some injury into the chest wall, which causes breach in the parietal pleura also. Then, in certain cases, we can even see fluid as well as air in the pleural cavity, and such a condition is termed as hydropneumothorax. So here we have certain pictures of X-rays also, where we can see how it looks when there is accumulation of fluid in the pleural cavity, that is pleural effusion. As we can see, it gives a radio opaque shadow, and the pleural space increases, and because of the fluid inside, a radio opaque shadow can be seen, while radiolucent shadow is decreased from the as compared to the normal side. Pneumothorax is the accumulation of air within the pleural cavity, and it can be diagnosed on X-ray, where we can see the lining of the visceral uh, pleura, and in rest of the thoracic cavity there is absence of the bronchial markings, as we can see on this side, but we cannot see any bronchial markings on this side because the lung has decreased in the size. So you can appreciate certain bronchial markings in the area of this blue arrow, but not in rest of the thoracic cavity on the right side, while as compared to the left side. So this shows that there is accumulation of air in the pleural cavity called as pneumothorax. This is a condition of hydropneumothorax where you can see a fluid level. Here also on the lateral side view also you can see the fluid level, and above that is the air, because here again you cannot appreciate the markings of the lung. So this shows that there is fluid as well as air within the lung. Thank you.